Welcome to this video. Today we are going to talk about angle pairs, and the first pair of angles that we are going to talk about are adjacent angles. Angle 1 and angle 2 are perfect examples of adjacent angles. They are just angles that are right next to each other, or as I like to say, they are just side by side. Angle 3 and angle 4 are also examples of adjacent angles. Let's look at the definition. Adjacent angles are two coplanar angles. So in this example here we have two angles with a common side. So the common side is this side right here, a common vertex, and no common interior points. And that just means that the angles don't overlap each other. Now let's look at vertical angles. Angle 1 and angle 2 are examples of vertical angles. I like to say that vertical angles are just angles that are straight across from each other. They always occur when you have two lines that intersect each other. Angle 3 and angle 4 are also examples of vertical angles. Let's take a look at the definition. Vertical angles are two angles whose sides are opposite rays. What that means is from this point of intersection right here, we have a ray, and then we have the opposite ray on this side right here. And the same would happen with this line as well. The next pair of angles that we're going to talk about are complementary angles. Let's go right to the definition. Complementary angles are two angles whose measures have a sum of 90. Taking a look at this diagram here, we have angle 1 and angle 2. Well, they have to have a sum of 90 because we see this symbol right here that is telling us that this is a right angle, meaning that it has to be 90 degrees. Now let's look at another example. Angle A and angle B are also complementary angles. They are two angles that have a sum of 90. But let's look at the difference. Angle 1 and angle 2 are adjacent angles, and angle A and angle B are non-adjacent angles. So you can have angles that are side by side, or you can have two that are away from each other, as long as the two angles add up to 90 degrees. Supplementary angles are two angles whose measures have a sum of 180. Taking a look at angle 1 and angle 2, well, these two angles form a straight line, and a straight line is always 180 degrees, so these angles have to add up to 180. Let's take a look at another example. Angle B and angle C, well, these again have a sum of 180, and just like in the previous example, angle 1 and angle 2 are adjacent, and angle B and angle C are non-adjacent. It doesn't matter as long as it fits the definition, and that is that we have two angles that have a sum of 180.
In class, I like to say, what's up? Meaning supplementary. Get it? Supplementary. Okay, I guess you have to be there.
Linear pair is the next pair of angles that we're going to look at. But first, let's look at the word linear. Linear means line, so it makes sense that we're going to have a pair of angles that form a line. Angle 1 and angle 2 are a linear pair. Let's look at the definition. A linear pair is a pair of adjacent angles whose non-common sides are opposite rays. So looking at this diagram, this would be the common side. So the non-common sides are these two right here, and of course from this point of intersection they form opposite rays. Well, the angles of a linear pair form a straight angle, and we know that if they are a straight angle or they form a linear pair, then they are supplementary. So every time we have a linear pair, it is going to add up to 180 degrees.
Hi everyone! The next word that we're going to talk about is the word bisect, and it's a word that you're already familiar with. It just means to divide into congruent parts. So you might bisect a sandwich, you might bisect an apple, or you might bisect a stick of butter. Actually, you might not bisect a stick of butter, but I haven't been grocery shopping in a while, so it's all I had in my fridge. Sorry.
Now that we know that the word bisect means to divide into congruent parts, it makes sense that an angle bisector is just a ray that divides an angle into two congruent angles. Looking at this diagram here, AY is the angle bisector, and take a look at these arcs here. We have one arc here and one arc here. That is telling us that we have two congruent angles. So the minute you see that, you know that you have angles that are equal to each other or they are congruent. Angle XAY is congruent to angle YAZ. Taking what we've learned, let's apply it. Let's look at this diagram right here. We know that we have a linear pair and that a linear pair is always supplementary. And remember, supplementary means that we have two angles that have a sum of 180. If we were to put it in an equation, we would just add this angle plus this angle, which is what I've done right here, and then just make it equal to 180. In class, we will actually take the time to solve for x and plug it in so that we can figure out what each individual angle actually is. But today I just want to show you how to set it up, and then we will practice doing those steps in class together. How about if we're not given a diagram, we're just given some information. Here we're given that we have two angles that are complementary, and we are also given information about each of those angles. Well, we know complementary angles are two angles that have a sum of 90. Well, let's use that to set up an equation. Sum means addition, so we would just add this angle to this angle and make it equal to 90. And that's what I've done right here. 7x minus 1 plus 4x plus 3 equals 90. Let's take a look at one more. Let's say we're given that AY is the angle bisector. Well, we know that if it's an angle bisector, it's going to divide this big angle here into two congruent angles. That means we can just make this angle equal to this angle and then set up an equation. 3x plus 8 equals 2x plus 48. This has been a lot of fun. I'll see you guys later.
I love it when geometry has to do with food. Love it.